Okay. With that magical button push, I believe we are live. So you got someone in the chat, someone watching already, someone's already joined us, so thanks for that. Gives me incentive to simply start right away, not wait for some mystical point where people might join us. So if you haven't been to the stream before, try and do these once a week or so. Make a bunch of sounds and pigments, talk about what we're doing as we go. Answer questions along the way if you have questions. And generally, hopefully, provide a resource that's useful in your own synth programming exploits and also being mildly to moderately entertaining in and of itself. Hello, Swarm. Hey, all right, right on. Good to see you. Glad you could make it from the beginning. Thought we'd work on some leads today. Just because I've noticed in the past that if I have a plan, things go a little better than if I'm just kind of like goofing off. So I guess we could start with some lead theory. Lead sounds just sort of sounds like it's one of your sounds that's going to be taking the lead, the front, generally. So it might mean doing a solo or taking the main melody or just any other sort of situation where it's out front. In traditional arrangements, it might be a guitar or piano is the lead instrument, an organ sometimes maybe. Various woodwinds make good leads. You can even make like a violin or something like that a lead as well. It really just depends on what the kind of music you're making is and what you are hoping to accomplish. And maybe this is a good opportunity too to talk a little bit about how these categories, leads. It's fairly arbitrary. Any way of breaking up sounds is going to be fairly arbitrary. Like if you look at, for example, I'm pretty sure this is all, let's say preset as. Well, I guess this doesn't really. Okay, the types here is what we have. Let me make sure this is actually visible. Yeah, okay, you can see that menu. Wait, hold on. Can you see it when it goes down? Type. Oh, you guys can't see it. Okay, so I will read it to you. It's just like a weird thing that this doesn't show up on the stream. I don't know why. So you have types here. They divide them into bass, brass, and winds. Custom, which I guess is for anything that doesn't fit one of these categories. Drums, electric piano, keys, lead. Hey, look, there's the leads. Organ, pad, piano, sequence, sound effects, strings, and vocal. There's a template one too, but obviously that's for making templates. Interesting. Yeah. What is lead sound? First, mostly mono and staccato. Yeah. Right. Those are two things that I would definitely say are frequently characteristic of lead sounds. They're monophonic, and they come on at something close to full volume when you hit the, and then they turn off as soon as you let off the key. So yes, and actually that might be an interesting place to start. I can make it this the mono sound. And sometimes those sounds are legato as well. And if you're not familiar with the music terminology of legato, it means that the envelopes don't re-trigger when a new key is pressed, which it's kind of hard to tell with the way this is set up then. But yeah, but a lead can be just about any sound. I mean, we could try checking out some of these leads. Type styles banks. Types, there we go. Leads. All right, so let's hear some of the leads here. All right, so let's hear some of the leads here. All right, so let's hear some of the leads here. All right, so let's hear some of the leads here. All right, so let's hear some of the leads here. All right, so let's hear some of the leads here. All right, so let's hear some of the leads here. All right, so let's hear some of the leads here. All right, so let's hear some of the leads here. All right, so let's hear some of the leads here. All right, so let's hear some of the leads here. All right, so let's hear some of the leads here. All right, so let's hear some of the leads here. All right, so let's hear some of the leads here. All right, so let's hear some of the leads here. All right, so let's hear some of the leads here. All right, so let's hear some of the leads here. All right, so let's hear some of the leads here. All right, so let's hear some of the leads here. All right, so let's hear some of the leads here. All right, so let's hear some of the leads here. All right, so let's hear some of the leads here. All right, so let's hear some You see, I mean, this one right here is not all that staccato. It has kind of a ramp up into its sound. All right, see. Very different ideas. Yeah. So I think a lot of the solo leads sort of fit this definition that we were talking about. But yeah, clear that out, close that. Let's get a new preset up in here. Okay, but yeah, the point is, lead it's a pretty wide ranging category. We will go ahead and make a mono lead. And decide later if we want to make it legato or not. Let's go ahead and put the wavetable onto the sawtooth wave to begin with. It just gives us a lot of harmonics to play with. Some keyboard tracking. So the BFG one is reminiscent of Mick Gordon's synth work on the new Doom soundtrack. That's the Doom that came out like, what was it, maybe 5 or 7 years ago, right? There's not a newer one than that. Is there? Not that I'm aware of anyway. Correct me if I'm wrong. I played that one on one of the Xboxes. It was either the 360 or the Xbox One. I think it must have been the Xbox One. And yeah, it seemed pretty fun. I got stuck 4 or 5 levels in and stopped playing it, which is kind of my usual. These days, as an old man, that's my usual experience with video games. 2016. Yeah, okay. So that's a long time ago now, but yeah, I knew it was a little while ago. Time does fly. Yeah. I remember thinking it sounded pretty good for sure. Curiously, 2016 was actually before I got back into making music in a meaningful way. BFG Division. All right. Well, I will check it out on the YouTube. I'm sure it's up there. Check it out and find out what's going on with that. Okay, let's take this even further down and give an envelope. There we go. This is got a nice percussive attack. Let's see, here's where you see the difference between the legato and regular mono leads. Percussive attack. As long as I'm holding that one key. Versus so you can hopefully make sense, at least what it's doing, even if you're not entirely clear on when you would want those different kinds of synth sounds. I mean, I do think it can be one of those things where people are like, they just like one or the other and don't see any use at all for the opposite kind. I like variety, so I think that they both have their time and places to be used. And I know it is kind of super boring, but oops, that's not what we want to do. We are going to just set up some basic stuff here. And we'll mess with the timbre last. So now we have the mod wheel opens up the vibrato, and we'll also put that on there as well. We'll sidechain that. Oops, not by aftertouch, by the mod wheel. Mod wheel at like 73%. So there's always a maybe just or 83%. Yeah, there's just a hint. You can see that filter's just moving a little bit. But when you there's just a little bit of movement here. A little drive to the filter. It's another motion point. That's too much, clearly. Still too much. Can we get this? Sidechain that as well. And again, so just when you open up the it's almost a little getting into the realm of the maudlin and the melodramatic with all that motion, but you know, maybe sometimes you need something that's a little maudlin and melodramatic. Let's see. All right, so now let's see if we can find something more interesting. Can the sidechain be negative? I think it can be. Yep, it sure can be. So in this case, yeah, it would turn it off as the thing goes up. What were you thinking of making the sidechain be negative on? I'm open to try something. Okay. So these are the basic waves from a System 100M. That's kind of fun. Okay, so make so that the drive is. I mean, we could take it off the drive altogether. That was just like a thing I was trying out there. Were you thinking like this? So. Honestly, I think I should just maybe take it off this driver, just take it down to the minimum. Maybe we'll have the mod wheel kick the drive up, or not mod wheel, I mean, oops, that's not, okay, we can actually do that. Mod wheel turn the drive up, but then also we can turn it up via aftertouch. More default drive. Compress sine. That's like from Yamaha TX-A1Z. Lo-fi. Sines and triangles. That's interesting. Shapes from the Mini Brute. More default. Okay, so let's see if turn. Let's make this negative. See if I can figure out what you were. Turn it up a little. Ultrasaw, metal unison, mini waveform, so that's from the Mini Moog. Multi-bend, must be from some kind of wave folder. Pro. There's an interesting pulse width. This is what we would like to play with, saw width modulation. So I think, based on the name anyway, and sort of based on looking at it, that this is applying pulse width style modulation to a saw wave, which is something that the Alpha Juno synth, I think it was the first synth to do that, and that is at the heart of the infamous Hoover sound, is a pulse width modulated saw wave. Here I think it just gives us a saw wave with an interesting kind of tonality to it. Okay, actually turn that one off, use envelope 3. know what, actually, let's, what is this, 23 milliseconds, 847 milliseconds. Sync. So this whole thing is a half. What if it's set to, there we go. And set that to the wavetable. A little more curve in here. Yeah, Alex is definitely a great, great YouTuber. His sense of humor and approachability is definitely a big sell for. I mean, the stuff that he covers is fascinating anyway, and he does a really good job as a journalist or a historian or whatever you want to consider him. Oh yeah, that's nice. I think that's what I was looking for. But then he also is really funny and entertaining guy. Probably willing to watch him cover things even that I was not nearly as inherently interested in. So. Wonder if. Oops. I do think this one works a little better legato, so we're going to do that, and we're going to raise the sustain a little. Maybe not quite that much. Go down even a touch more. That's getting us in the right range. Let me see here. All right. Feel like once more, what happens if no, what about this? Interesting. Aftertouch slows that down a little bit. Can you set loop points in the function so that it like loops back and forth between like 2 points in it? I don't know. I don't know if you can or not. I think you can only loop the whole thing. Because let's see. So we have loop, one shot, envelope, or envelope loop. Oh, maybe. Is this what you had in mind? Yes, it looks like you can do what you're suggesting. I'm not entirely sure how to control it, but it does look like you can do this to some degree. Oh, there we go. That's okay. Let's see here. It's a little, the controls seem a little tricky here. Okay, I see. I guess it can only loop between 2 points. Makes sense. Okay, so let's undo. Undo. Get back to where we were. There we go. Put the loop in the go into the loop in the sustain. Yeah. So let's see. We could put another point here. So what are you thinking? It just would like loop between, say, this point and that, something like that. So you got an envelope loop. Yeah. There we go. There we go. That's not what I want. There. And if I move that, yep, moves the loop. So we could also do something like set points like this. You're annoying me. So the controls on this seem a little, I don't want to call them janky, but a little bit tricky to use. Maybe I'm missing something. There we go. That is, I'm assuming that's essentially what you had in mind there. So it does a big sweep of the wavetable and then it loops a bit at the end. It's okay, so big sweep of the wavetable and then goes. Maybe we can just get that down to there. And then something like that. Can we? Oh, come on, there we. Yeah, like just grabbing them and moving them, it just seems a little twitchy. Like I mean, part of the problem is that the grab points for these can overlap with the grab points for these little flags. So like when they're up here by themselves, they're fine, they're easy to grab. But when there's a function point here near it, like if I move this to, oops, that's not what I wanted to do. If I were to move this to there, it could be pretty difficult to grab next time. Oh, it wasn't too bad there, but yeah. I can do the curve on these too. It's kind of fun. So it's like, I wonder if I do want to actually move the wavetable that a little forward and increase the amount of it a little bit. Yeah, the the loop points, basically these dots here, the big dots, are the I guess you call them the breakpoints of the function. The little dots adjust the curve. Big dots adjust, the actual. You can add more, move them around, etc. You can put sustain stages in. Boop. And then and these you can only loop between the breakpoints. I don't know if breakpoints is what they actually call them. That's in my mind. That's the terminology that makes most sense. But the points of the function that mark its change of direction or whatever. So. Yeah, these functions are pretty cool, especially when you start combining them with the combinates and stuff. You can use these to get some pretty wild modulation options. Alright. Velocity sensitivity on this. And maybe a little velocity sensitivity on sidechain that with velocity by like 20 some percent. Don't really need it as a sub, but we can detune this just a little bit to get some. quite that loud. Okay, so that was a little sub oscillator. It's not actually subbing, it's the same, just to give the fundamental a little more presence. We can also add some noise. That's way too much. Tell you what, let's do that and 3. Too much. Still too much. So what I'm doing here is just adding a little burst of noise to the attack. Texture there. We can add a second engine, although, so I added some detune, some unison, and then I took it off. I think I'll add it again here, getting close to the end, just a little 3-voice unison. Let's see, probably need to put the vibrato engine on this one as well. It is possible for it to have its own. This button right here, you can fire up filter 2 and put both of these through their own filter, no problem. So we could, for example, make this one be super high resonance and put this envelope 3 filter on it. Too much. I think I will put, so yeah, I think what it actually makes sense to do is, I like the idea of putting this through the noise through its own filter, but I'm just going to put the noise through there. I'm going to put the sine wave through this other filter. Yeah, different envelope for the noise filter. Are we using, yeah, filter? Yeah, so we got it on the volume and the, yeah, filter. That's all it's doing. Just And I'm just kind of tweaking these drive and resonance filters. Still not sure. I guess I do want this. Yeah, maybe this needs a little. Yeah. It is, in fact, pretty wild how frequently you ask, hey, can I do this? And the answer is, yeah, I think I can do that. Although we have run across a couple things that it cannot, in fact, do, like different modulations in the effects section, for example, seem weirdly limited. I mean, not complaining, Arturia. There's certainly plenty of mod options, but it is kind of wild that, surprising anyway, that some of the things that can't be modified. What's going on with this comment? Oh, it's the envelope follower. Yeah, that's interesting. What kind of effects to add to this? How about some tape echo? Yeah, I mean, there are. I mean, even looking at this, like, so you can modulate the dry wet, the time, fine, input volume, stereo. On this one, you can modulate everything, but like for the chorus, for example, you can't modulate the depth, you can't modulate the delay, you can modulate the rate, you can't modulate the voices, you can't modulate stereo, mono. I mean, that sort of makes sense. You can't modulate the LFO, but you can do the dry wet, feedback, and the rate, but not the delay, the depth, or the number of voices. And it's like, I kind of understand those things. The depth seems like something you should be able to modulate. I mean, it's not like insane or like, oh, forget it, I'm not going to use this. But, it just seems like if you can modulate the depth, you could have a chorus that becomes more or less intense as it goes on, things like that. I don't know, just a thought. Uh, so I guess we've come up with kind of a brassy lead sound here. It's kind of like a slightly non-classic brass. We need just a little less on the filter. But maybe just a little bit more on the sustain. Early Vector Lovers. I am not familiar with them, but it's a good name. But yeah, so I think this is. And if you can always add some reverb via the aux send here. We're going to turn that down. Honestly, I think that the tape echo kind of gives it enough space, arguably. Seems all right to me. I call this Brassica Lead because it's kind of a dumb joke about it's sort of a brass lead, right? In that neighborhood. We'll call this percussive lead. We'll say it's good for IDM, indie dance, techno, because everything's good for techno. It's kind of atmospheric. It's kind of mellow. Sometimes picking these stupid things, it's like, what? I don't know, man. Stuff. Synth, sure. Yeah, and the thing with the reverb is if anyone gets their hands on this patch, they can always they can add the reverb themselves, either here or in their DAW. All right, we spent a long time, like an hour, on that lead and talking about leads in general. Maybe we can get another one done a little faster. Maybe we could squeeze in two leads. Maybe we should do like an FM lead. It's interesting. That is interesting right there. Reverb. Yeah, reverb is such an interesting topic. Obviously, for like ambient musicians in particular, it's kind of super important. And maybe even for ambient fans, there's some truth to that. But so my feeling about reverb is that, I mean, obviously everyone has their own preference and everyone wants it to sound good. And I used to be really particular and picky about what reverbs I would use. Like I used to, when I was using Ableton the first go around, I wouldn't use its reverb. I thought it was just terrible and unusable. And over time, experimenting with different things, releasing more music, etc., and talking to music fans about music too, I just kind of came to the conclusion that like the number of times in history that a song was or a track of some sort was less successful than it could have been because of the reverb is it's probably non-zero, but it's very very close to non-zero in my estimation, which strongly suggests that reverb is just not worth getting your panties in a bunch about. Find one you like, stick with it. You don't need to change it all the time. You probably don't need to even tweak the settings that much. If you kind of have a reverb sound you like, it's probably fine for all your stuff. But yeah, and that's exactly what I'm saying. You have one, you found one you like, you tweak it to your, like people have all these reverb plugins, dozens, hundreds of them sometimes. And I mean, hey, more power to you. I'm not here to tell you how to live your life, certainly, but um, I guess I just feel like it's hard to believe that it's really worth the time that it takes to even organize that many reverb plugins and defaults to, you know, it's just hard to imagine that the juice is worth the squeeze. Got another weird brass sound here. I don't know if I like this or not. It is interesting, but wonder what we get if we do both of these. It's an interesting tone. I don't know. brain freeze sounds. That's an interesting way to describe them. They are weird. These are some not the most pleasant tonalities you'll ever hear, for sure. I wonder if we can get... That's kind of an interesting percussive, almost like... It's kind of piano-like, I guess. I mean, not really. Some kind of weird mutant harpsichord, piano, guitar, hybrid, some frickin' thing. Yeah, so... Maybe it's time. I kind of like this as a basis. Maybe it's time to add a modal element to it. Okay, well that sounds like back into the brass. So can we increase the density with aftertouch? And does that sound good? Maybe also the volume be aftertouch. Time to start messing with some of these. Yeah, well, I mean, even like you're saying, Raudvik there, I think you're saying use the built-in reverbs on your wave state, and even that, like, there are people who would just turn their nose up at that, like, oh, there's, you know, built-in reverbs aren't even worth fucking with, and just like I just don't really agree. I really like using built-in effects on things whenever possible, and you know, there are times when you just like really want, you know, you have like a black hole patch in mind that you want to use on something. Nothing else will do, but you know, a lot of times a built-in reverb. is yeah, it's good enough. So, interesting thing about this modal engine is it adds a very interesting sense of space to things without using any reverb or delay. Just something about the model adds this weird spatial element. Do you know? So, Radvik, do you know if they're the same ones on the Op 6, or if they're a different set of reverbs than what's on the Op 6? Because I know all those use like the same kind of engine underneath, but obviously, like maybe on the Op 6 they had to spend more resources on the FM engine, and so they had to use a simpler set of reverbs or something. I don't know. I'm just curious if you had any idea, because I think you have an Op 6 as well, if I recall. So anyway, if you have thoughts, if you have knowledge, by all means share that. Op 6s are different. Okay. Yeah, I thought they might be. I guess I don't really need this hat. I'll take it off. Okay, so I'm looking for, let's try that thing with the function that we did here. Envelope loop. Now this guy loop between these 2 points. And where are we going to have that go? We're going to have it go to the filter. Function 1 goes to the filter. Okay, let's actually put this here. I'm actually going to turn on filter 2 and see if we can get okay, let's make this longer. Well, that's interesting. Roderick, thank you for the information on the Op6 reverbs. You are becoming one of my go-to sources for Korg synthesizer information, so I appreciate that. It's good to have someone that you can just ask questions. Obviously, I can do a little research, probably figure this stuff out myself, but sometimes it's nice to just ask someone and have an answer. All right. Put some amp mod on this. Yeah, I feel that. I mean, sometimes you just sort of unintentionally become a fanboy of stuff. Like I think apparently I'm an Arturia fanboy, which was definitely not like intentional. I just kept buying Arturia gear and software until I realized that like half my studio was Arturia stuff, and including several of my favorite synths. Microfreak might be my favorite synth of all time. Um, Op6 is actually in close competition for that. And then Drum Brute is my favorite drum machine that I have. My favorite analog. Actually, my favorite analog monosynth is probably the Strega. The Mini Brute is in the running for sure. And probably number two. Um, I'm actually kind of surprised they didn't make more or any Euro Rack modules after making their case. Right. Aftertouch adds noise to that model. Let's also use it to push a little, turn this way down and put a little aftertouch on that as well. Too much. There we go. We're getting in the right neighborhood now. And if you listen to this real closely, you see what I mean about that, about the spatial sense of space. It's interesting. Oh, nice. Well, that sounds like a good friend that gave you a deal on an Op6 and a Wave State together. Yeah, I have one of the Volcas, the Volca drum, which I like pretty well. I do get frustrated sometimes with how fidgety it is, but it's a very cool drum synth. And I've played with the Volca Beats and the Volca. Maybe that's all. Oh no, Volca Kick, I think I've played with as well. That friends of mine have had and brought over or whatever. And they're totally fine. I mean, all the vocals are fun little jam machines. I definitely almost went that. Oh, Volca Modular. I've also played with Volca Modular. That was actually one of my first hands-on modular experiences, and I almost got that when I was getting into modular, but I ended up going with the. I don't want to say real modular, but Euro Rack modular instead, and never looked back. Oh, that's the accent. We don't want the accent. Undo. There we go. FXA. Let's try a flanger in there. Good. What kind of presets do we have here? Jet. It's a little intense. silly. That's pretty silly. All right, soft. That's pretty good. That's what I had in mind. Just do some little bit of decay or delay rather. A little dotted eighth note. That's sort of, speaking of default go-tos, that dotted eighth note delay is definitely my go-to when I just want a little something to kind of like give it a little. That's kind of cool. I kind of like it. I'm going to cheese again and just do mod wheel to tuning. LFO3 goes to the fine. I like about 17. Yep. Sidechain mod wheel 100%. Engine 2, same deal. Sidechain mod wheel 100%. And that's. What we're also going to do is put this LFO on here. Okay, that might be a bit much. Let's see if this is actually usable at all. Yeah, okay, but maybe like half that much. Hold on a second, y'all. My wife is asking me a question about the weather. So you have to wait while I look out the window. I'm sorry. All right, I kind of like this. It's mysterious. It's like. Gosh darn it. Sorry, I'm trying to type a message to someone here. I know that's annoying to watch. Yep. Yeah, well, when the Wave State first came out, I was very, very briefly very tempted by it. So for a short period of time, I was like, oh, I need this. I got to get my hands on one. I'm a huge, huge fan of the original Wave Station. I have come so close to buying almost every form of Wave Station that exists at different times, from the Wave Station, the Wave Station AD, which was the rack mount one, the Wave Station EX, which was the expanded one, and the Wave Station SR. There are different times in my life I have had each of those in my sights. So naturally, when the Wave State came out, I was like, "Oh, this looks pretty sweet." But the more I looked into it, I ended up sort of like cooling to it a bit. although I've actually kind of warmed back up to it. Um, I think my main concern was just that it's going to be a real pain in the ass to program, and as these streams might suggest, um, I am I don't really mess with synths that I can't program. Every synth I've bought that turned out to be a pain in the ass to program, I've just passed it on. I've sold it. I've had even when I really love the synth. Notable examples include a. I'm just adjusting these envelopes a little bit here, by the way. Yeah, so notable synths I have loved but have passed on because the programming was too much of a pain in the ass would include the Yamaha TX81Z, a synth that I dearly loved and actually kind of worked out my FM programming chops on. It's like the first half of my FM programming chops got worked out on that. Um, a Yamaha SY77, which was an incredible synth, but such an unbelievable pain in the ass to program. Just such a bad interface. I mean, for the time and for the depth of the synthesizer, and yeah, for all the the design language of the time and the limitations that they were dealing with. I'm sure they did the best that they could. So I'm trying to spit out here. So I'm not trying to talk shit on the UI UX programmers for the Yamaha SY77, but it was an incredibly complicated synth that you had to interface with through a pretty small display. Multi-stage envelopes, 6-operator FM, samples. You could combine the samples in the FM. You could FM the samples. You could just do a crazy amount of stuff with it. But you had to do all that through this pretty janky interface, and like the language wasn't that great. Even like in terms of like the envelopes, they were like time and level envelopes, similar to the DX7s. So you had to like keep all these different like numbers in your head, or write them down as you went from screen to screen, and yada yada yada. Anyway, I'm whining, pissing and moaning, but didn't love the interface. Sold it, even though I love the synth. Well, that one also got sold because it was like genuinely enormous. It was probably as big as this whole side of the desk here. And then I had a Korg Prophecy for a while, which is an incredible synth engine, but the interface to program it was just a nightmare. And so after I probably had it for less than a year, I just had to pass it on. Just was not something that I could wrap my head around putting sounds together on a regular basis. I programmed 2 or 3 sounds on it in the year that I had it, and each one took me like days and days of working through. And if I would have kept working at it, I'm sure I would have gotten it figured out and gotten better at it. But there's only so many days and hours in a day, so many days in a lifetime, so it didn't happen. Okay, so I think I've used the word mysterious like 10 different times in patches. What is an adjective for mysterious? Or synonym, rather, not an adjective. I can't even speak tonight. Ooh, enigmatic. There we go. We'll just call it the Enigma Lead. Yeah, that's a good name for it. And with that, I'm actually going to have to wrap this up. Wave state is a lot less complicated than it seems. Wave sequencing is yes, that's definitely one of the things. Myst Lead. Oh, that's not a bad name too, actually. let's see, can we just change that to... I like your suggestion. We'll call it the Myst Lead. There we go. Myst Lead. And all right, so my wife is poking me to say that she needs me, so I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you all for coming. I'm sorry we only got through 2 sounds. Ended up being a slightly short one. I thought I would go till 4:30, but my wife is needing me right now, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this short because as much as I love all y'all, I do love my wife even more. So it has been fun. I hope to see you all again soon, and thanks for stopping by and discussing um, synthesis and some lead theory and whatnot. Radvik, thank you especially for your information on Korg synthesizers. It is very much appreciated. Thanks, Swarm. Yeah, I will see you all soon, and yeah, next Wednesday, if not before.